Right now, tonight, I've been joined by Alex Singer. He is running for the for Congress for the 3rd District of Nevada. Alex, how are you tonight? Thanks so much for joining me.
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. Listen, I have your bio here. I have a couple of things about you, but I've been talking long enough. Why don't you tell my listeners a little bit about yourself and the position that you're running for?
Sure. So I'm running for the 3rd Congressional District here in Nevada. It's a seat that's held by Joe Heck for the past 6 years, which has led to no representation for the district, whether it's been on healthcare, wages, jobs, immigration. Every issue has been ignored. He's been part of the no caucus, basically. Nothing will get done. It's all politics as usual. Well, I'm 29. I'm maybe young to politics, but I'm not new to politics. Okay. A lot of folks around here have maybe not have heard of my campaign or heard about me yet, but they will. I've been fighting on progressive campaigns since 2008 with President Obama. And every year after that on issues, whether it's human rights, civil rights, getting progressive candidates elected into office. I've fought on these battles. I've fought these battles on the front lines. I've talked to voters. I've talked to folks who've been struggling. Their story is my story. I've lived through that struggle. I've overcome that struggle. I've seen a parent lose their business, lose their job, not be able to pay their mortgage, lose their house, lose savings that they accrued for 40 years. I lived that. But like so many Americans, they just want the ability to fight and overcome that. And, I want to be able to bring that opportunity and chance back to the people of this district and across the entire country, to make sure that they have a chance also to live their dream and the American dream.
Awesome story there. 29. Good Lord, 29. I remember when I was 29. When I was 29, I was partying 7 nights a week in South Florida. So at 29, I congratulate you for being so focused on what you're trying to do at such an early age. There was a candidate in South Florida. I won't call his name because he's turning out to be more moderate, more right-leaning Democrat, but he was also a young candidate. And at the time, he was very progressive. And I guess maybe I just set you up for a really good question. Tell me about the formation of your ideology and the person that you are at 29. Who are you, what is grounding you? How do we know the person that you are at 29 is going to be the person you are after your first term?
Sure. Well, I honestly, maybe it'll sound cheesy. Maybe it'll sound, it's my parents. You look back and they instilled in me, not just, progressive values or political values, but just moral values to help somebody else. Even if you're not in a great position to help somebody, try. That is the essence of what I grew up in, what I've seen so many people grow up with. And I've always maintained that. I've always maintained that level-headedness that, as good as things could be today, they may not be there tomorrow. So you need to make sure that you go ahead and give back. A little bit of a history on that is about 4 years ago, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, that kind of rendered me, with a little bit of a disability. And it's, progressively got a little bit worse. And, I had to go on disability and I had to use those programs to help me. And, it gave me, not that it hadn't always been there, but it gave me that thought again that, as good as things might be now, they may not be tomorrow. And I've always wanted to maintain who I am. I'm not going to change for the audience. I'm not going to change depending on what room I'm addressing or what politician I may be addressing or what party head I may be addressing.
Right.
I will always stay the same. And if you hear me here, you hear me on another podcast, you hear me in a video, you hear me campaigning, it will be the same message because those are my values and they're going to stay my values.
Excellent. Okay. Let's talk about some of those values, some of those things that you're fighting for, that you're standing for. I see that you are a strong supporter of labor's workers' right to unionize, as well as provide a safe and intimidation-free environment to do so, which is really some of the things that are the most under attack, in my opinion. That labor's rights, not only directly from politicians, but also from trade policies that really weaken the strength of labor unions. So tell me, where do you stand on that? Where do you stand on the TPP? What are you going to do in that vein?
Sure. I will flat out say it now. I am against TPP. I believe it's a disaster. It just continues. We've heard it. It's NAFTA on steroids. There's no way around it. So many of the policies within the structure of that deal have nothing to do with trade. It has only to do with advancing corporate interests, whether it's drug patents. If someone can tell me what drug patents to protect the pharmaceutical industry, what that has to do with trade, I would love to hear it. Because quite frankly, all that sounds like is that they just want to make sure that there will never be a generic brought to market. They'll make sure that no country can organize and negotiate lower drug prices. So I'm flat out against TPP. I believe we need to start having fair trade deals. And as you alluded to, it does weaken workers' rights. It does weaken a worker if their job is subject, if a factory worker's job is subject to being lost to Mexico or an Asian country, whatever the case may be, in India, that, all a CEO has to say is, well, you're either going to take these dirt wages or you're going to lose your job. Right. And who does that benefit? It doesn't benefit the economy. It doesn't benefit the work. It benefits the bottom line of this with the CEO, and it benefits the company. And so for me, unionizing, especially in Las Vegas, it's such a huge, a huge issue, especially when you get to the casinos. My wife is actually a table games dealer at one of the casinos, and some of them are unionized, some of the casinos are not. And she is unfortunately not unionized. And so a lot of times she faces, whether it's hostile hostile coworkers, customers, there's no protections. If she complains, she could be out of there. And I don't know who that can benefit it, because it's not the worker. And it only, if you have numbers and strength, there's strength in numbers, and, to make sure that you're able to negotiate higher wages, better protections, better healthcare, that matters. And that gives the workers, at least puts them on an even playing field when it comes to dealing with management.
Right. And speaking of workers, I see that you strongly support $15 an hour minimum wage.
Absolutely.
Let's just applaud there. I want you to tell me though, what do you feel the difference is, besides just the raw numbers, right? But this argument for 12, like let's settle for 12. What have you seen in your district that says that 12 is not going to cut it, 15 is what we need?
Sure. Study after study. You talk to economists, you read studies. $12, yeah, it'll help. It's better than 8.
Right.
But it's not enough. And you get to a point where you need to work, I believe the number at 60 hours you'd have to work 55 hours a week just to have the bare minimum of a 2-bedroom apartment. Well, if you have a family of 5, well, first of all, a 2-bedroom apartment's not going to cut it. Right. That doesn't include food. Electricity prices out here are sky high. You've got food prices, gas prices. So $12, while that's a great middle ground and that's wonderful and that might be progress for the sake of progress is not progress. And we need to do a better job and understanding that just passing something, we only may get one shot at doing that. And we have to make sure that we do it right. And $15 an hour, it wasn't just something that was pulled out of thin air and just concocted,
Exactly.
And, if we want to be real, the real minimum wage should be about $21 had it kept up with inflation. So if we really want to, if we want to talk about compromise, I think $15 might be the compromise.
Especially if you're talking about the amount of efficiencies that they get out of workers now. I believe it was $22 an hour. That's the efficiency that they're getting out of the average worker now, whereas we're paying something far less than that. Let me ask you this question: what type of in terms of we're talking about trade, we're talking about labor unions, what type of labor laws would you like to see enacted? And a second part of that question is, what kind of trade would you vote for if you don't support the TPP? So what type of trade would you support?
Well, when it comes to trade, I think we have to be realistic, and I think we have to start protecting our workers and not just the multinational corporations. So when it comes to that, we need to start protecting American industries. So again, fair trade, free trade is fine, but I just don't see the benefit to the average worker, like I was stating. And I think, while we need to have dialogue with other nations, and trade is a big promotion of that, making sure that we actually are able to sell our products that are made by American workers that has to be the forefront and the outline of every trade deal.
Mm-hmm.
And right now we don't have that, so, Nike, for instance, if they're in with the TPP, they support it. Well, that's great. They have their factories in countries that pay, 8 cents a day, so when they're just increasing their profit margin so that when they ship their goods back to the United States, well, they're getting both ends. They're paying their workers nothing, and they're also getting all the benefits without having to pay to import their goods. Mm-hmm. Well, that's a problem. So that decimates American workers. That decimates American manufacturers. So when it comes to worker protections, we need to have better. It's a wide-ranging issue, and I'll try to narrow it and try to keep it as brief as possible. But when it comes to worker protections, a lot of things that are ignored are, say, maternity leave. That's a worker protection. So that a mother that just gave birth doesn't have to spend only 12 weeks with their child, and then make sure that not only is it paid, but make sure that when they come back, they actually have the same job. Because oftentimes what happens is, you get those 12 weeks off, you could be fired the week after you come back. Right. So that's a worker protection. A worker protection is, again, being able to make sure that make sure that you're able to unionize without threat of being fired. Make sure that you're never intimidated. The same measures we do to protect the ballot box when we vote in November in every election, we need to do the same when it comes to allowing workers in the workplace to do the same and have the privacy to do that and not be threatened, not to have videos used against them, threatening, the horror of unionizing.
Let me ask you this, and I think that's I think you've hit on some very key points there. I'm looking at the district that you're running in. Mm-hmm. You're running in the 3rd district, correct?
Right.
And that includes Las Vegas?
Yeah, Las Vegas is more the southern portion, but Las Vegas, Henderson, and Summerlin.
Okay, so you're on the southern side of Nevada. And I just know that in the entire region over there, one of the major issues in that entire region is illegal immigration. Mm-hmm. Where do you stand? What type of path to citizenship, if any? Where do you fall in terms of immigration?
Well, I think we need to provide, obviously, a path to citizenship. I think we have, last estimates, and I think this was done just a few years ago, so the numbers, I'm sure, have increased. We have 11 million undocumented citizens in this country. So, well, that's a problem. We need to start bringing them out of the shadows and make them what they want to be, and that's Americans. They came here to partake in the American dream. They wanted their chance to provide a better future for their family. My wife, she's a first-generation Mexican-American, and her family came here because they wanted to provide a better life for her. They wanted her to have the opportunity to achieve great things. And had we, they've had to somewhat live in the shadows of that, and while she's been able to prosper, she'll be a nurse in 2 years. That is the type of I'm not just saying this because she's my wife, but that's the type of citizen that we should encourage to come here, someone who wants to make their life better. So I do believe that we need to provide a path to citizenship, and I'm not going to put a barrier on that in terms of saying, well, we need to secure the border, we need to put troops on that. That's silly. It's irresponsible.
But what about then? What is the general sentiment of your area, though? Because you guys are like in the hotbed, like you're not on the southern border, but you probably get quite a bit of undocumented workers. You got it affects the security, and so if someone is hearing you, and it sounds as though you don't feel as concerned about it. How do you? What do you say then about all of the potential violence, the potential, and I'm asking this potentially intentionally. Sure. But like, there's a flip side to this. How do you speak to the people that are afraid of legal immigration issue?
What I would say is over 30% of our population here in Las Vegas comes from immigrants. Mm-hmm. And that's a low number. I would certainly suspect it's a little bit higher. You can't reach people, you can't reach people. Mm-hmm. And I would say, these folks, they're already living here. They're already working. They're already a part of the community. Their kids go to your kids' school. Mm-hmm. They're driving on the roads that you drive. They're working at the grocery store that you buy your groceries from and you fill your gas at. And they work at the casinos. They're a part of our society. And to be afraid, no one's taking your job. No one is, ripping you off. These folks, they're paying taxes. That's something that's lost a lot in this issue, is that, when they say, oh, they're not contributing, they're paying taxes. And so, some of them even pay the income tax. They take it out when they're working for an employer. They have it taken out because they don't want that issue. They don't want to have to be indebted to the IRS when they become citizens. They're paying sales tax. They're paying a gas tax. They're already living in our community. And I think that we need to do a better job of certainly informing the general public of that. But there has to be an understanding that, they're a part of our society, and they're not trying to, redo American culture. They're not trying to do anything. They're not trying to, someone from Mexico is not trying to make us have, a Mexican culture. They're living within our culture. They're American in every way, but on paper. And,
I like that.
Needs to be.
I like that. You made a really great point. And that's exactly why I asked, because you're in the region where this is a living, tangible reality, right? I'm in Massachusetts. So if there's a large illegal immigration population here, I've never seen it. But in your location, you're only so many hours from the southern border. So of course, you're going to have quite a bit there. And I like the way that you've actually cast it. And I don't quite think I've heard it that way before. That why be afraid when they are already here? They are already your neighbors. They are already going to school with you. Their children are going to school with you. Some of them are driving on the street. Like, they're not, it's not this twisty mustache villains coming across the border next week if we don't shut it down.
Right.
They're already here. And so
right.
if you're safe and secure today, your neighbor could very well be an illegal immigrant. Why are you allowing an entire party to make you afraid of them when they're already your neighbor? I think that's a brilliant way that you put it there.
And I would like to make one other point about it. And this is probably more specific, but you think about it. Well, if someone's here illegally, let's say, and they're driving a car and you get into a car accident. Well, a lot of times what happens is they drive off. They're scared. They don't have insurance. They don't have a life. So why wouldn't you? It would make everybody safer, to make sure that they're a part of the society, that if a mistake happens, they don't have to run. They don't have to, drain police resources because someone calls in and says, I think an illegal immigrant ran and he hit and run and he ran. No, he would stay because he'd have insurance. He'd have a license. He'd have money. Why not just, again, integrate and understand that they're here?
So I have two more questions for you, Alex, and then I'll let you get back to your campaigning and all the stuff that you have to do. Let me ask you this then. In terms of actually stopping the problem of illegal immigration, what do you feel is the solution to that, short of building a wall and making a gate with, Trump Tower symbol on it? How do we fix the problem?
Well, I mean, quite frankly, studies have shown that the problem has kind of fixed it. We've had, neutral immigration coming to America. And so, so if we want to further fix it, which again, it mostly has in itself, partially with the struggling economy, but what we need to do with that is have a better visa process. So if workers, if people want to come to this country, we need to have a better streamlined process. Sometimes people wait 2-3 years to come here. And, if your family is struggling and, with some of these, in Mexico, the economy is not good, violence is high. Well, they want to be able to work and come here, get a job, send money back, work in a job that will make their family safer. Why not encourage that? Why not make sure that, we want to talk about family values. That is family values. Sacrificing your liberty, your family, your freedom, to come here just to try and work. So we need to do a better job of reforming our visa process, making it more streamlined, make sure that we don't have backups of 2 or 3 years. And I'd like to say that, that is what Republicans do. They break the system, they break these programs, and then they say, see, it doesn't work. And when it comes to the visa program, they underfund it. And so that they can come up and say, yeah, we need to reform the whole thing. And yeah, while we're at it, let's not let anybody in because, well, they're not white, they're not, Christian. So let's just, no reason for them to come here.
Good segue there. I actually have 2 more questions. I lied. I had had 3. I thought it was 2.
Hey, I'm here. We're fine.
Okay, so you are in Las Vegas. You are about an hour, I would say an hour, 15-minute flight from Phoenix. Is that about right?
Yeah.
So in Phoenix, over the summer in August, Bernie Sanders and Martin O'Malley, who's no longer with our this election season, they went to Netroots Nation, and they were confronted with Black Lives Matter. And it was important. It was an important turning point for Senator Sanders, because immediately after that, he began to piece together a very coherent strategy in terms of criminal justice reforms, addressing police brutality, and all of those things. Seeing as you're so close to Phoenix, where it really was the flashpoint for Black Lives Matter in this campaign, I can't let you off without asking you, where do you stand in terms of Black Lives Matter? Do you feel it's okay to say Black Lives Matter without any type of hesitation? Do you feel like there's a legitimate grievances that are going on? Just spill your guts on Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter, like that. You know, you hear the all lives matter, blue lives matter when it comes to. No one is disputing that. What we're saying is, unfortunately, Black lives in America, it's not always great, and it's not always safe. And, so yes, it sprung up with police violence, but this dates back for as long as we've been a country. Black lives haven't mattered to a large swath of people in this country. And, so yeah, at this time, yes, absolutely. Black lives matter. We oftentimes miss, when we talk in slogans or we sometimes miss what it really means. And what it really means is that as a Caucasian male, if I get pulled over by a police officer, I don't have the fear that if I talk the wrong way, if I say the wrong thing, I'm having a bad day and I might have an attitude. I'm not as concerned that I'm going to be shot and killed by a police officer for that reason as it happens to so many young Black men in this country. That is a disgrace. And so what we need to do when we talk about Black Lives Matter, people need to understand that we're not saying above, we're not saying all, we're saying equal. We're talking about equality. We're not trying to raise or put anybody here or there. We're trying to make everybody equal. But until Black lives are equal, until Black lives do matter, we need to fight for that. And we need to understand that. And so when it comes to Bernie Sanders alluded to criminal justice reform, police official, they need to start looking like their community. They need, if they're policing a community and it's 60% Black and 20% Hispanic, that's how the police force needs to look.
Right.
And we need to do a better job of that. In Ferguson was a perfect example. They had a lot of officers that were dismissed from other precincts that were kicked out for brutality or whatever the case may be. And then they were thrown into a predominantly Black city and said, police this. Well, first of all, that's not how you build a community. And a community does encompass a police force. A police force is only as good as their relationship with the community. And once you break that, crime rates go up, cooperation goes down, and what you have is, whether it's unsafe situations for the citizens, it'll also be unsafe for the police officers if nobody trusts them. And when it comes to criminal justice reform, just real quick on that, I did a video about that, and it was my first campaign video. It's important that we need to reform our criminal justice system, and I came up with a 4-part plan to do so. It's real quick, and we need to end the war on drugs. It's predominantly affected Black and Hispanic men and women in this country, and that's a huge problem. We need to end the war on drugs. It was a disaster when it started, and it failed the moment that it was started. Second, we need to legalize marijuana. We need that has to happen. Nobody's life should be ruined by spending their life in prison because of the fact that they got caught with a joint or they smoke weed. It's not the end of the world, and we need to start legalizing it because it's a recreational drug. It has less side effects than alcohol and cigarettes. So there's no reason that. Third, we need to provide drug treatment for the harder drugs, meth, cocaine, that needs to happen. And drug treatment is very important when we talk about reforming our justice system in this country, because first of all, it works. Second of all, it saves money. And, if we want to reduce recidivism, we need to start treating real hardcore drug users and start acknowledging the fact that it's a disease. It's not somebody going out and wanting to break the law. It's a disease. You get an addiction, that's a disease. And fourth, we need to end for-profit prisons. That has been one of the most brutal things on most of our communities. When you have a private prison lobby that is able to write some of the drug sentencing laws in a lot of cases, because when you look at the contracts that they have with some of the states, where it has 100% capacity in their contracts, so the city or the state has to have 100% capacity, or they have to pay the prisons the difference, in the money. That's a huge deal.
That's the biggest conflict of interest ever known.
Yeah.
And not only an abdication of duty by, I hate to cut you off, but you just struck me, man. Not only is it an abdication of duty of our federal government and our state government and our local government to protect and imprison, right? To do their job. They should be the only ones with that ability. But it's a conflict of interest because now these contracts say if our beds aren't filled, you have to pay us this extra money. So there is an incentive in this private policing and the for-profit policing for them to fill up these beds. That's absolutely completely antithetical to their job description. Alex, thank you so much for bringing that last one up, man. That one,
absolutely.
That one is, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, I was just going to finish by saying, the more you look at these contracts, the more sick it makes you. And that's my 4-part plan. And there's certainly more that needs to go in to make sure that we reform the justice system. But I think that would be a great start to make sure that we actually move forward on that issue.
Alex, I've got 60 seconds for you, and I have 2 things that I need you to do. One, I need you to tell us in the first 30 seconds why you consider yourself a Sanders Democrat. Why have you supported and endorsed Bernie Sanders? And then the last 30 seconds, tell us how we can help you and how we can contact you.
Sure. Because I believe in providing equality for all Americans. I believe that healthcare should be a right. I believe that, everybody should be earning at least a living wage so that no one ever has to choose between, rent and food. So generally, yeah, I support Bernie Sanders because it's time that we provided equality for all Americans. And that does include the rich, but it also includes the middle class and the poor to make sure that we provide opportunities for everybody. Right. And so how you can help me, go to singerforcongress.com. There's a donate button there. You can learn all about me on the website. But right now, I'm a grassroots candidate. I don't have a big bank account like one of my opponents to self-fund my campaign. I don't have Harry Reid standing behind me to make me the establishment pick to get big donors. So I need everybody's help. I need a contribution to help us fight and help us bring, equality back to this country and give the rights back to our citizens and make sure that we actually have a functioning democracy. And on Facebook, Alex Singer for Congress, and there you can find all my information, little posts that I have. But again, if any donations would be great at this point, just to provide a little bit of boost, provide us with the energy going forward to make sure that we can bring your message to Congress and make sure that your voice is heard.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have been speaking with Alex Singer. He is a congressional candidate for the 3rd District of Nevada, including the southern portion of Las Vegas down to the southern border of Nevada. Alex, thanks so much for joining us, man. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
I want everyone, real quick, I didn't hear you give a Twitter handle. What's your Twitter handle?
It's Alex C. Singer 16 at Twitter.
You have to get a better no.
Hey.
Let me type it out really quick because I want to make sure everyone goes this. So it's give it to me. It's at Alex.
It's Alex C. Singer 16.
Ah, okay. C. Singer 16.
Yeah, I'm throwing in my middle name because
Okay.
There's so many Alex Singers out there that I figured, well, I gotta break up myself here, right?
Okay, no, it makes sense now. Alex C. Singer 16. That's a lot of C's, a lot of alliteration. But I'm gonna
change it just for you.
Oh no! If you got the followers, if you have the followers, keep the followers, and we'll take care of the rest. So listen, thanks so much for joining me, man. We're gonna share your Twitter handle and try to get you as much support as we can.
Thank you so much. And remember, singerforcongress.com, and check it out, and hope to meet a lot of you during this campaign. Thank you so much for having me.
It's been my pleasure. Good luck over there in that election.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, that was Alex Singer, and we're going to do as many of these interviews as we can to give voice and amplify as much as we can the different candidates who are strong progressive candidates. That's what we're going for.